Hello and welcome to Watches Tonight. I'm Tim Mosso. We got Nick on the switcher this evening, and thanks to all of you for joining in. I want to thank everyone who joined me for the unveiling of my Grail watch last week. It was a bit of a thrill. I'd been waiting on that for a little bit and waiting on the watch for even longer. So you guys made it more meaningful to me, and I will always be grateful for that. This evening, we discuss when to sell your watches. I've got a warning about micro brands, and we chat live while I share your wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. While we're warming up, do me a favor, check out my Instagram, Tim_Mosso, and you'll see all sorts of insights into the life and times of Tim Mosso, as well as my famous 1-minute video reviews of watches that are often not listed on our website. So if you want the good stuff, that's pretty much where you're going to find it. Check out Tim_Mosso on Instagram. Also, if you're interested in meeting me, I will be traveling this fall starting this week. So Baltimore on the 18th and the 19th, so basically I think this Thursday and Friday, you'll be able to meet me at our Pikesville location in Maryland. It's basically the metropolitan area of Baltimore. It used to be Radcliffe, but I'll see you there this Thursday and Friday, I think that's correct. And I would love to meet you. We're doing our watch fair. We're going to have personnel from the brands we carry as well as special pieces on hand. Should be a lot of fun. That is our flagship store on the Mid-Atlantic. And coming up soon after that, the 26th and the 27th, out in Newport Beach, California. So if you're in Southern California, we're going to be at the former Hyde Park location in Fashion Island in Orange County. So I would love for you to join me on the 26th and the 27th in our 1916 Company boutique for another watch fair, again with the brand's personnel and special pieces, that Friday and Saturday, the 26th and 27th. Welcome to one and all in the box. Enrique Cassiano, Eduard Leden of Sweden. We've got Moto Gunner, Michael Everywhere, Abdul from Germany, Christopher C. We got 911 Euro, Grandmaster Chime from San Francisco. I got Andrew T, Slowboy Fuel Pump, Andrew K, Ordinary 999, Richard Combs from South Florida, Decibels, Junior Johnson from Michigan. Let's see, we got Scott, we got Flavio joining in, and Dr. B from Naples. Welcome one and all. Andy, Simon, Richard from Kent, England. Good to have you in the box. Okay, so tonight, wrist shots number 1, instant gratification. Starting with Philip D, who leads off with an exotic car cruise to Bear Lake with his AP Royalo chronograph. We got Danny K and his Rolex Explorer 2 Polar taking a paddle steamer ride on Switzerland's Lake Lucerne, the homeland of most watches. We got Dr. B, he's in the box now, he's on your screen, with his first ever FP Journe. Congratulations, and wear it in good health and good times as he rolls in his Bentley Bentayga SUV. We got Kasim H and his birth year Rolex GMT 16710, love that tritium fade, in Koh Samui, Thailand. And Yan makes the show after I promised him last week he'd be here. Then I forgot. Now I've righted the wrong, and that is his Jacob & Co. Epic Sea Skeleton. Yan, thank you for your patience. We got Nathaniel K. of Florida, who astonishes with a collaboration between Philippe Dufour and Daniel Lerotte. This is the C117 Perpetual Calendar that took 4 years of their combined efforts to bring to market in the mid-1990s. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your pieces on these pixels. What else is going on? Enrique Cassiano spotted that Ferrari F12. We got Milgauss 88. Am I blind or is there no video? I think some of you guys see me. If you have no video, it's definitely you, not me. Let's see what's going on here. We have Dr. Mark from Colorado. Matthew C, who's going to see me Thursday in Baltimore. We have a comment from Isami that Jacob is epic. And Andy saying, shout out to GYOG. We got Nicholas saying, Tim kind of broad, hope you can help. Do you recommend the 116713LN? Well, I would ask, do you like the watch? I mean, if we're talking about two-tone Rolex sports watches, and this one's a GMT, it's really just down to, do you like the aesthetic of it? If you do, game on. If you don't, look for something else. It's not the deepest dive into, the finer points of where it came from and who made it, the name of the people who were involved. It's an evergreen model line from a company that will be around forever. So if you like it, it's a great choice. If you don't like it, there's nothing I can say to change that state of affairs. So I say go with your heart, as I often do. Mark asking, how's the Grail doing? Great, inseparable. And Rich Mitch, let's see. Bad experience with an AD. Sorry to hear about that. We got Parker in the box asking, I heard there's something going on with you at Fashion Island in a few weeks, but I can't find further info. That's because my company does not disseminate this information effectively. On the 26th and the 27th of this month, I'm going to be at our 1916 company location all day long in Fashion Island. So it used to be Hyde Park, now it's the 1916 company, same friendly faces. It's our watch fair, and I will be on hand. So please come say hi. What else is going on? Well, not every watch is a forever watch. This is getting to kind of the crux of tonight's discussion. While luxury watches are designed to last decades or centuries, your ownership of a given watch may last only as long as you want it, can afford it, or prefer it to alternatives. Tonight, I'm going to discuss when it's time to sell your watches in good conscience. We're not talking about dumping your watches because you're done with collecting or you're ready to die, or because you want to flip a new Nautilus or Daytona to make some money off of it, or because you're down to your last dollar. Hopefully that's never going to be the case. No. Tonight, we're talking about selling watches or trading them out of your collection because you're still a collector, but your priorities and tastes have shifted. Let's start with something that I think needs to be broached first, which is when not to sell your watches, because that's important so you don't make a mistake. These should never be sold or traded, and we're going to start with heirlooms, family heirlooms. That's my grandpa's watch, his graduation watch. That's a forever watch. Oddly, it seems, and I'm sure some of you who've been around the watch space for a long time online have seen this, but the most common first and often only posts by new users on many watch forums seem to be questions demanding to know the value of some watch purportedly inherited from a father, grandfather, or uncle. Now, that's often apocryphal, but that's how it's framed. Aside from the fact that many of these people are just shameless flippers, scammers, and liars, the very idea of selling a family heirloom like something passed down through generations, it seems, to quote Moon Zappa, grody to the max. And a Valley girl would agree. I own my grandpa's retirement watch, and it will never leave my custody, except maybe when I die, and it will be handed to the next generation. I can't imagine it ever being owned outside the lineage of Albert Lane. That's my grandpa's name. So it was passed on to me. It will probably be passed on to my young nephew, who I hope enjoys watches, and will appreciate this more than my corpse will. So when I'm dead, it'll be his. Now, this isn't like a hand-me-down wardrobe or a clapped-out car that your two older siblings drove to high school before you did. A watch is a forever kind of inheritance. It's something designed to last much longer than one lifetime. Never sell an heirloom watch. It's almost like a member of the family. And a generational watch cuts to the heart of why watches can mean so much to a person. It's the people and the memories that really make it worthwhile. Okay, jumping now into our chat box real quick. We got Frederick, we got Pocket Watch Time, Sutats, we got Mark I, we got Jim Millett from the UK. I'm glad to see all you guys. We got a comment right here from Grandmaster Chime. Can never sell Christopher Walken's war watch. Yeah, I mean, after all he went through to hide it from Vietnamese prison guards, you know, I'd hang on to that too. Maybe clean it, but hang on to it. What else going on here? We got Ordinary 999. We got Edward welcoming Jim. It's great we look after each other in the Talking Time with Tim Mosso Facebook group. We got Laurel L saying, hi Tim, long time. I'm so happy to finally catch the show live, and I definitely appreciate that. Okay, gifts. I consider it bad form to sell a gift watch. My Dan Reuter DR02, that's the watch you're looking at right there. That was a gift from its creator and my friend Dan Reuter of Brooklyn. Aside from the fact that I helped design the color palette for this watch is part of the special bond I have with Dan. His family has Ukrainian roots, and my old Zin went off to a related mission in 2022, and Dan immediately offered to replace my former chronograph. So That means a lot to me. And he jumped out almost immediately, designed this thing for me. It was a piece unique at the time, but later on my DR02 became the basis for my Facebook group's first group exclusive watch. And it started the tradition of each watch for the group being the work of a group member and a creator in the indie watch space. First Dan and then later Armand Biard of Sartori Biard. You can re-gift Amazon's perennial sales champion, the Instant Pot, and I don't think anyone will be too offended, and no one will roll in their grave, and I don't think it will be a moral compromise in any way. You can also sell someone's inconceived furniture given to you for a housewarming. But if somebody takes the time to buy you a watch or makes one for you, I feel like it's bad faith to sell that. Okay, what else going on in the box? We got Norm saying a watch is not like a 500-piece china set or a room full of furniture. It's easy to drag around. Also true. You'll have no problem whatsoever storing it. We got Furyan Survivor from Sydney, Australia joining in. Soma R from Europe. We got Aza saying, Grandpa's Fusée and Chain pocket watch. I have it, but it needs service. I can understand that. There are people who do that kind of thing. It's funny. There's a lot of Fusée and Chain pocket watches kicking around. Many of them are of English and German origin, but a shocking number of them still exist and still work today. A testament to their makers. Like I said, a watch is a generational product. We have Abdul saying, another two watches I wouldn't sell are my Lyric Etude 1 and Philippe Pikulik Sternenhimmel with custom-made dial. We got Dr. Kevin Moore joining in the box saying, never sell a gifted watch, and I agree. Okay, milestones. And that one. There are turning points in our lives that define our stories as people. But no matter how watershed these moments are, we can never relive them. Basically, the idea that you can never step into the same stream twice because the water runs on. Watches are a way we try to put those moments in a box and hold on to them. And my graduation watch, which you're looking at in the picture, capped a hard-fought period of my life, ultimately successful, and I wanted to remember the relief and elation of that day I graduated. So I used half of my graduation gifts. I invited everyone I knew to the party. Trust me, I was planning for this. But all those people I hadn't seen in years showed up, gave me 25 bucks. I bought a laptop and I bought the watch. And at the time people said, oh, you should put all the money into school. I'm like, I don't know about that. Today the laptop's junk and the watch is still on my wrist. So, you know, who had the last laugh there? But the important thing is, I used part of that graduation gift to buy my first forever watch purchase, the 2002 Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter. It's been with me through college, my first finance adjacent job out of school, Navy training, swim tests, service years when I was in the military, and my time working in the watch space. In bad times, it's reminded me of the challenges that I've overcome in the past and the triumphs that I've achieved before. That's a huge lift when I'm feeling down, and we all have those times. Watches like this can bring us to a better place mentally because of the associations with success and life milestones. I really think it would be harder to reconnect with those wins that I've had if I didn't have that physical reminder on my wrist. And keeping the watch in rotation means I've added another full lifetime of memories really since I got it at the end of high school, and milestones to that watch since I bought it. So whatever it meant to me then, and that was a lot, it means twice as much to me now, and maybe more. I'd even go so far as to say the aggregate of the lives lived with that Omega now outweigh the original milestone of graduation. I mean, I took my Navy third class and second class swim tests with that thing, so you could even call it a military used Omega Seamaster. Not combat, I never went into combat, but I did wear a uniform in that thing at the same time, so I can say that much. We got Nicholas in the box, and I will never sell the 116610 LV Brian Goffberg sold me out of the AD case for $8,500 in 2016. You'll never get it new for that's for sure. You'll never get it new for that much money again. And we have SAP7 saying, I had the same metal bezel, 36 millimeters, hello from England, and always watch for me, live, live or catch up. Okay, so when he says an always watch, he means the show, not a watch, and I appreciate that. We got Big Zebra joining in, asking, what is Tim's Grail watch? This right here, De Bethune DBD Inline Calendar Jump Hour Moon Phase. It's mine now, one of 9 made like this. And then right here we have Enrique Casiano saying, my graduation gift, a Seiko turtle, has been on my wrist in every single dive I have ever done. And Moto Gunner of Athens, Georgia, saying, I will never sell my Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter white dial. It's my forever piece. Very, very cool. Okay, speaking of milestones, that's also another part of the heirloom watch story. This milestone was my grandfather's. Look at that, 10 karat gold filled back when that was a thing in the US market. Grandpa's watch tells a story about his life, and that makes me a custodian of his memories too. And yeah, 25 years he was a repairman at Remington Electric Shaver, repairing and rebuilding things that today you would just throw out and replace. You can see from the inside of this 70s era watch how well he took care of it. And I think he performed the service himself, which is inspiring to me to imagine that he might have been the family's first watchmaker and hopefully not its last. But yeah, that's Grandpa's watch, and it's part of his story too, because of the milestones that he crossed while wearing it. Milestone watches keep coming as the years go on. Now, we had a question about what I'm wearing right now and what the Grail watch and the Milestone watch is. That's what it looks like up close. A very special piece, and a very Tim watch, because that doesn't play to the middle of the market. You look at that thing, some say it looks like a bathroom scale. I prefer to say it looks like a tombstone, but it's definitely not your Nautilus, Royal Oak, or Odysseus. Last week I shared one that marks a peak in my career and also a turning point. I have to ask, now that I've been doing this for a decade, what my next decade in the watch industry might look like. And I can guarantee only 2 truths about this De Bethune over the next 10 years. First, it'll still be on my wrist 10 years from now. This is a never sell. Second, it will mean more then, fortified by subsequent experiences, than it means today. Okay, a final note on irreplaceable watches. Never sell a watch that you will not be able to get again, either because it's so rare or you'll never have an opportunity to buy it at that price, or it's something that can only be custom made by a person who's going to retire soon. Think like Daniel Roth or Philippe Dufour, something like that. But if you have a watch and you get this watch and it's an irreplaceable watch, never sell. You will have seller's remorse if you sell it. That's a thing. There's buyer's remorse, but there's also seller's remorse. This is a 1 of 9 watch. I probably won't have this chance again. Think long and hard before selling or trading one of those. There's always another Seamaster, Submariner, or even Nautilus, but something bordering on unique is another matter. Also worth mentioning is that rare watches can gain value, so sometimes they gain so much value that you wouldn't be able to buy it again if you had to pay the going rate. Like if you bought a Paul Newman Daytona back in the 90s, even adjusted for inflation, it would be pocket change compared to what it's worth today. That's another type of irreplaceable watch that I recommend you never sell. If you got in before the getting was good, keep that watch. All right, jumping into the box, Abdul's saying, my watch has the steampunk Art Deco combination. Amazing watch that DB Tim, wear it in good health. Thank you, Abdul. We have David saying, I have my grandfather's Omega Seamaster with a date complication and the day is stuck. I took it to the local watch guy and he said parts are impossible to get and it can't be fixed. Yeah, that sounds like baloney. There's not too many Omegas that weren't mass produced. Even the Tourbillon can be serviced. So the idea that some mass produced Omega with a date can't be fixed, I wouldn't take it to the local guy. I would reach out to Swatch Group US and Secaucus and see what they recommend. I can almost guarantee you that can be fixed. Okay, Michael asking, Tim, what milestone is that De Bethune marking? Well, 2 things. 1, a decade in the business, and 2, it's kind of the culmination of everything I've achieved in this business. I also look at it as a turning point. You know, in the past, my idea was to establish myself, and going forward, my hope is to acquire new skills. Also, the mere fact of being able to own a De Bethune after so many years of making it my grail, it's almost like this is journey's end by itself. The watch is, in and of itself, a milestone. What else is going on? We have Noob saying, Why wouldn't you sell your watch if it has exploded in value? Because you own it for other reasons than that. That's why. It says, Doug DeMuro made the same case for a McLaren F1. Yes, well, you can't sell it and drive it too. So if you love it more as a car than a cash machine, you're going to keep it and drive it. And I remember when you could get a McLaren F1 for like $450,000 in the early 2000s before the market hit. That is exactly why you wouldn't sell it. All right, jumping back in, Viewerist Shots number 2. Muhammad E is in Nairobi, Kenya at the Giraffe Center with a dramatic action shot of his 2025 Tudor Black Bay 58 Red with the 5-link bracelet. We got Fadi Y, who joins us from Jerusalem with his Omega Constellation Globemaster suited up. We got Jimmy Y in his burnished Panerai PAM 2025, enjoying a feast fit for a king. We got Ruben S from Atlanta, preparing for a pool party, it seems, with his Grand Seiko Tentograph chronograph, and Bennett Y shares his Atelier Wen Perception Mu with a fine cigar at Nazareth's in Beverly Hills, California. Upscale. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com, or if you prefer vintage, thewatchbox.com. When to sell your watches. Okay, now we're at the heart of it. Let's talk about when it's time to sell a watch. Collecting watches is a social activity at its best. But the decision to buy or sell a given piece is a deeply personal decision and based on your priorities, ultimately. First, consider that your tastes may change over time. We all live and learn, even me. My tastes have changed over time. Imagine a 4-year-old child who is destined to grow up, record 5 albums, and win 6 Grammys for like power blues or something like that. Chances are that kid didn't start with like Robert Johnson, Eric Clapton, and Johnny Winter. At 4 years old, that kid probably would have told you that his favorite songs are a bunch of like ear-curling Disney tunes from animated movies. And that's just how people start. That's how human beings grow up. They grow up, they learn, and they broaden their horizons. And it's the same for watch collectors. Look at my first high luxury watch, my JLC Master Compressor World Alarm Tides of Time. It had a lot of features. I was very impressed. It was my gateway into handmade watches and upscale pieces. Ultimately, though, it's comically huge. And you can see from that photo that it just didn't fit. I had no frame of reference, though, having never owned a variety of watches or even worn this watch before I bought it. I hadn't even seen it before I bought it. Now, look at the progression of my collection, roughly speaking, from left to right in this photo. The watches became smaller and more dress-oriented as I refined my tastes. And this is just a matter of knowing better what is out there and being able to focus my tastes in watches on the kind of watches that match my natural inclinations. My favorite and ultimate Jaeger LeCoultre was a tiny platinum reverso tourbillon in a Grand Tie case that was itself a bit of a misnomer because it was a little thing, but I loved this watch. This is one of those JLC watches I wish I'd kept. This is just how I changed with experience as a collector and even as a professional inside of the industry. It's not a static thing, and it's okay to admit you were wrong. I was. The realization led me to sell my Extreme World Alarm, my first JLC, and it was a bit sad to see it go, but the choice to buy it was genetically flawed in the first place. And I resolved not to make the same mistake again by doing more research, reading more widely, buying less quickly, and ultimately spending more time deciding what I liked about watches generally before I chose a specific watch. And my collecting was better off and more rewarding for that. So several years later, I had a chance to own what was at the time the ultimate reverso, the Triptyque, the first reverso ever made with 3 dials. Knowing that size matters, so to speak, by this point, I traveled to try it first, and I'm glad I did. You could see it on my wrist. This was never going to work out. Maybe on my bicep, definitely not on my arm. Watch size is a matter of taste, but it is also a practical one for many wrists. Some watches just don't fit, and they never will. Selling because you made a sizing mistake is just fine, but learn the lessons so it doesn't become a habit. You know what I'm saying there? Okay. That's just size. I realized the extreme world alarm didn't fit me, which is a very concrete and practical problem, but I also decided that I just like dress styles and dress complications more as a rule. As a new collector, we tend to take terminology seriously. Too many start with the assumption that sports watches are watches we have a license to wear anytime we are not in some kind of a formal suit, and the dress watches are things we can only use for weddings, graduations, or a trip to the opera. That is almost never. Well, hell no. Dress watches, guys. Dress watches are better understood as the watches you wear anytime you're not swimming, working out, or doing yard work. And that's most of the time for those of us who work in offices and make our way about the world in regular attire without, I don't know, putting on a football jersey or a helmet or strapping into a race car. If that's not how you make your living, chances are the dress watch is going to be the watch you wear almost all the time, including in short sleeves, including in short pants. It's going to be your constant companion. I wear dress watches all the time in all attire, and there's no bow tie required to exercise my favorite dress watch while shopping in street clothes at Costco. Yep, right there. You could see my Reverso Tourbillon in platinum made the trip to Costco. We took a look at cottage cheese, eggs, which were sold, I think, in boxes of 96, walked past the Invicta display, yes, with the JLC Platinum Reverso. But my point is, I went into a Costco in Florida, dressed casually wearing that thing, and that became part of my everyday life, because you don't need to dress up to wear a dress watch, and that's a big mistake people make when they're thinking about how much they're going to wear a dress watch before the purchase. The answer is probably a lot. When you realize this, you may choose to pare down your sports watch holdings, I certainly did, or just not buy more of them. It's possible that after breaking a bunch of dress watches, you also could decide to rebalance toward tougher watches. So this is the opposite argument. People who maybe borrow someone else's tastes in watches and they take their advice and they buy dress watches, complications, formal watches, autologerie, and then they break them or they dent them or they find they're not terribly durable for high impact. So there's always going to be the guy who went deep into gold Vacheron Patrimony, Traditionnel, or Longa ones, and what he actually needs is a Seamaster of some kind, rather than redundant formal watches. That's just going to hold up better on his wrist the way he wears his watch, but that takes experience as a collector to understand. Another time to sell or trade, and this is a big one, is when a watch is not getting worn. Consider my lovely JLC Master Moon. This watch had everything going for it. A great brand, black dial, steel case, perfectly sized at 37 millimeters. Nothing not to love. Fantastic watch, but I stopped wearing it when I got my platinum JLC Master Grand Memovox, which just offered so much more in a similar format. Now I've got a perpetual calendar, an alarm, a moon phase, a platinum case, a limited edition. Very, very cool. That's on my old Audi S8. I loved both those machines. But my point is, once I had this, I never looked at the Master Moon again. While I could make the case for owning both, the actual time on my wrist made a stronger argument for letting go of the simple calendar. I could say the same about my lovely white gold Reverso, day and night. Fantastic piece, lovable, a great Reverso. But if you've got, well, my platinum tourbillon in the same case size, every time I made the choice was this. So you can buy watches that supersede old ones. One watch in, one watch out. If you're not wearing the older watch, wear the one you love, sell the one you don't. That's my advice. Think about it. If you're not wearing a watch, and it's not some kind of blue chip investment type thing, if you're not keeping it as an heirloom for another generation, then you're coming dangerously close to becoming a hoarder. If endless browsing of sales sites and forums is like the common cold of watch collecting, then hoarding is, let's say, the Ebola. It's something that can quickly get out of hand, ruin your finances, ruin your enjoyment of your collection, and even cut short the honeymoon period of joy you get when you buy a new watch. I know tons of guys with limitless budgets who just seem to be on missions to die with the most watches in their safes. And if they're getting any enjoyment out of it, it's a fleeting instant of pleasure between the time they open the box and the subsequent moment that the watch goes right into the safe and disappears forever. Building memories around worn watches is the antidote to hoarding, and that includes keeping the collection manageable enough to wear in its entirety on a regular basis, to move through your rotation and cycle them all. Let's be honest, you need to build these memories as part of the watch community. It's participatory. We come for the watches, but we stay for the people and all those good times that we enjoy with them. All right, let's see what's going on in the box. We got a question. What are you wearing today, Tim? Well, I'm happy to share. It's my DBD, my Grail watch, now mine, on my wrist, triple calendar, jumping, jump hour, moon phase, 39 pieces made in 2006. Abdul saying, sold my Tissot Citadel S last week for that reason. The summer is over and I didn't even wear it once for swimming, so it was time to sell. We have Nicola saying, Vacheron 1921, think it will go up? No. Unless you have some super rare version like the Monticello, I don't think the price will increase. We have another comment, also 1675 GMT from 1977. Not interested in selling, would just like your opinion. Really depends on the condition. Do you still have the box and papers? That's a bigger deal on an older watch that can really be a difference maker. Has it been polished? Has it been redialed? Is it all Rolex parts? Is it on a bracelet? Is it the factory bracelet? Is it a period correct bracelet? There are a lot of factors that go into that. Question from David, thoughts on the Furlan Mari White Sector? That's the kind of watch you buy on aesthetics alone. And I would make the decision on aesthetics alone because that is the differentiating point there. We have Azza saying, I'm a hoarder who wears all his watches. Well, good for you. You have dodged that pitfall. Hard to do, but you've achieved it. Bradley, I'm a man, Tim Mosso, live on YouTube. And Bradley, thank you for joining me. I'm happy to have you here. We got Josh saying, this is tremendous advice. Once you've gotten X number of watches, one in, one out is the way. New experiences over hoarding, and I could not agree more. And then we have Gobury saying, nothing wrong with hoarding. Selling a watch is a climb. All right. Okay, if that's the crime, then different perspective. Yin yang. We have Trap Vision. Greetings, Tim and chat. All right. Speaking of consolidation, consolidation is another way to justify selling or trading your watches out of your collection. Let's say a dream opportunity occurs. Something you have a shot at buying, and it's maybe one shot. The price is high, and it's going to require you make some sacrifices. So let's say you've got a shot at a Patek Philippe 5016, retrograde perpetual calendar, tourbillon, chronometer, minute repeater, 36 millimeters and beautiful. Maybe 200 made, very few. So it costs the better part of $1 million, and possibly to the high side these days. Now, even a wealthy person would struggle to afford this one watch. And yes, it is an extreme example. But consider that if you have 3 watches you're not wearing, you've got a Paul Newman Rolex 6239, you've got, and by the way, that's not a 6239, but all the time, all the same, advance. You've got a Nautilus 5711 1A-14, you've got a 1972 AP Royal Oak. You could sell all of these things and substantially cushion the blow to the tune of well over $500,000, allowing you to get into that Patek Philippe. Now, if you're not wearing these watches, or you would value the 5016 and wear it more, that's a good case to be made for consolidating 3 into 1. And in this instance, all of these are blue chip watches, but you can't wear 3 watches at once unless you're Lewis Hamilton. But the point is that I think you'd be happy with this one than with those 3 if they're not being worn. And that is one occasion where you might want to consolidate several watches into fewer watches. Not only would this cover a substantial portion of the purchase price, but it would clear out space in the collection and time on your wrist to enjoy that new purchase. Of course, even here, there are 2 ways to do this. One, buy the Patek and then sell your outgoing watches. You could sell them. You don't have to trade them. Sell them privately, get market price. This will yield the most money. But you need to have the money to buy the 5016 up front because it might take more time to sell these watches than that watch will be on the market. Marketing watches yourself is tough, and doing it at this price point is even tougher. The risk of scams, tire kickers who waste your time, and years-long listings on sales sites are among the reasons that sellers of elite-grade watches often send them to auction rather than play for every last cent in private deals. Second, there's another way to get through this, but you could get some kind of a dealer involved. In general, selling to a dealer gets you the wholesale value, not the retail value of a used watch. Because the dealer is not an end user, he has to buy at a lower price so he can sell it and make a profit. One advantage of going the dealer route is that a dealer can absorb several watches in one transaction. So as opposed to an auction house, which might not be willing to list all your watches, or private sales, which might take forever, even for 2 or 3, the dealer might just buy or trade 3 of your pieces right out of your collection. And if the same dealer has the watch you're purchasing or want to purchase, and well, that could shorten the time frame for cashing out your outgoing watches. Trades with dealers versus sales to dealers often yield a better return for the person trading the watch than if they sell the watch outright to the dealer. So if you do find a dealer with the watch you want, that 3-into-1 deal might actually be both quicker and offer you more money than if you were just selling to one dealer and buying from another. But it's got to be the same dealer to make the trade happen. I would avoid consignment in general with something like this. It can combine the worst aspects of selling to a dealer and attempting to market a watch by yourself on a sales site. Now let me add a warning, specifically for people who are getting deep into micro brands right now, because they seem to be everywhere. The term micro brand is something relatively new, and I'm not going to make a value judgment on whether this is a good way or a bad way to get into or enjoy collecting. But the term micro brand does seem like something relatively new the last 10 years in its current context. It's distinct from independent brands like FP Journe or Patek that are building clear-cut luxury products designed to endure for generations. In general, micro-brand watches of today, they're kind of style-driven, economically conceived, and manufactured in the Far East to keep costs down. Many brands often are fabricated at the same constructors and factories, regardless of the name on the dial or the design of the watch. Today, micro-brand, as a term, is very similar to what we used to call a fashion watch 15 to 20 years ago in the watch hobby. To distinguish between this sort of thing and, say, an Omega or a Breitling, the one thing that's different is today's micro-brands seem to arise out of nowhere, whereas fashion watches 20 years ago tended to be things like Fossil or Skagen or Tom Ford. But in terms of what you're paying and what you're getting, there's a lot of similarities. I would say it's a bit more confusing today since many of these are no longer quartz, like the fashion watches of yesteryear, but actually mechanical, sometimes even automatic winding, or sometimes even with a tourbillon of some kind. And they've dovetailed themselves into the discussion created by genuine luxury brands like Grubel Forsey, which are micro in volume, but not honestly the same thing as a proposition. I don't mean to beat up on anyone in this space, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do or that these are the wrong watches for anyone or that they're not worth what's being charged. But I do want to caution people who might be getting into the watch hobby through micro brands. A few micro brand watches can't hurt and can be a lot of fun. But keep in mind that the resale market for some of these watches is short-lived, volatile, unproven, and even non-existent. So in the long term, I'm not sure these watches bought for $600, $700, $800 are going to be serviceable or of a lot of interest to people 5, 6, 7 years down the line. I don't know where you're going to get parts for those watches. I don't know if the companies that make them are going to take them back to perform an overhaul on them. Also uncertain is how and to what extent these watches that are built with a brand on the dial that is not the manufacturer, how these are actually going to be repaired and whether parts are going to be provided once the production run is over. If I'm selling a watch with my name, and I'm not targeting these guys specifically, I'm just saying a lot of micro brands have a name on the dial that is not the factory in Hong Kong or China that actually builds the machine. So retracing your steps 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the line to get parts and service and find the competent party to do so, it might be a lot harder than you think. Now that's okay if you've just got a handful of them, but spending thousands of dollars on micro-brand watches also takes you out of the sell to consolidate model of shaping your collection. Many buyers, including virtually all commercial dealers, will not purchase, trade for, or stock these micro-brand watches, so they may not be tradable if the time comes to consolidate them into one genuine luxury watch. If you put $10,000 into micro-brands today, your ability to sell those will come down entirely to your own skills, marketing something with questionable product longevity, serviceability, uncertain long-term support from the manufacturer, and new equivalents that might cost little more than your used examples. In short, you may not be able to exit that position, so if you get in really deep, that might almost be a sunken cost. And I say this as a person who's concerned for the collector. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm saying past a point, ask if maybe you don't want to go any deeper into something that's not tradable. If you're looking at micro-brands as a stepping stone to true luxury watches, there's no economic basis for rolling those initial purchases into your eventual luxury watch. Look what people were paying for 7 Fridays 10 years ago, and now look at that 7 Friday from 10 years ago and what it's worth now. And that's a good example. And those were on the high end of micro-brand pricing. Viewer wrist shots number 3, Danny N. from New York City reports from Shining Sea with his Rolex Yachtmaster Steel and Platinum. Field W brings the best of Japan with the Shinkansen and the Gran Seiko SBGK 15 Ryosendo dial. We have David T. of California reports from Seiko House in Ginza, Tokyo, from the roof no less, with his 6139 vintage chronograph. Matt R. captures his wife's resplendent Rolex Cellini Cestello by the Baby Grand Piano, and yes, she plays. Bob M. of Ohio and his elegant Grand Seiko enjoy the finer things in life. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your passion in this fashion. When to sell your watches. I'm sure you've heard the term one watch in, one watch out. It's a solid philosophy. Many collectors have a sense of how many watches is too many watches, and once at the limit, a choice must be made. This is disciplined and principled, and it is both a good way to keep the collection wearably sized and a source of funding for new purchases. For my JLC collection, I had a rule of thumb defined by the size of my watch box, which had 8 slots. And I added one additional watch, a little bit of a fudge factor, because I figured one would always be on my wrist, so I could have 9 watches. You'd be surprised by the number of very sophisticated watch collectors I know who use exactly this measure, the size of their watch box plus their wrist, to keep the collection size rational. Finally, disastrous associations. And as we know from Castle Bravo, shrimp, disasters happen. That is the nuclear test that lives in infamy, even above other nuclear tests. Sometimes watches just have too much baggage to stay in your midst. This can be because you met the watchmaker whose name is on the dial and he was a jerk, or perhaps it could be a watch from a bad breaking relationship. If your divorce was brutal and your former spouse gave you the watch, I don't blame you for selling that watch, but that's another reason why you might want to sell. Guys, viewer wrist shots number 4, Bogdan I and his green dial Oyster Perpetual. Enjoy the beauty of Thassos, Greece. We got Dr. Tawana S. of the UAE enjoying Germany's Glasuta Original Panamatic Lunar with green dial. Michael reports from the Getty in Los Angeles with the Planisphere clock in the background. Gary and Susie the dog appreciate his Rolex Explorer 2 Polar on a strap Taylor Aquaflex. And Len M. takes us home with the rare Maître du Temps. Chapter 2, complete with school spirit. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your pieces on these pixels. Thanks to you, thanks to Nick, thanks to everyone who opined on selling watches and when it's time. Until next time, guys, remember, I want to see you in Baltimore this Thursday and Friday. Time out.